Some people say that God is all about belief and faith. But when they talk about faith, what they really mean is faith in their beliefs. Here's the thing. If you believe in something, it doesn't matter unless you truly believe in your belief. And here's the thing. Beliefs, they're just ideas you've made up in your mind. They're not truths. Think about it. I might believe you like me. Maybe you do today. But what if you don't tomorrow? I might believe you'll give me a job, but that's not guaranteed. You might, or you might not. I could say I believe in God, and someone else might say they don't. Beliefs are constantly changing. People change their beliefs all the time, don't they? What does that tell you? It means beliefs aren't real in a solid, unchanging way. They're just thoughts, figments of your mind. You can believe anything you want. I could believe you're from Mars because of your teeth. I just decided that on my own. Ridiculous, right? But that's how beliefs work. Now here's the funny part. We live in a world where people make up a bunch of stuff. And if they say it enough times, or get enough people to agree, it starts feeling real. Think about it. Do you see this in politics? People arguing about what they believe happened, what they believe is true. But at the end of the day, they're just beliefs, not truths. Eventually, as you grow, you start realizing that beliefs are interesting, but they're not permanent. They can shift. They're not absolute truths. And then you get to this idea of faith. What does it mean to have faith in your belief? It just means you're choosing to hold on to it. You've decided, I'm not going to change this. I have faith that it's right. But having faith doesn't make it right. For example, I could lend you money and have faith you'll pay me back. But my faith doesn't guarantee anything. It's just me believing in the idea that you'll come through. Faith and belief, at their core, are mental. They're things your mind creates. Have you ever had faith in someone and then lost it? It happens. You trusted them, and then something changed. That shows how temporary and fragile these things can be. So, is there something in spirituality that goes deeper than faith and belief? Absolutely. But not many people get to experience it. The truth is, practices like yoga go beyond the limits of faith and belief. Yoga isn't about what you believe or have faith in. It's about direct experience. It's about going beyond the mental ideas you create and tapping into something real, something you know, because you've experienced it for yourself, not just because you believe it's true. Imagine you've been to New York and seen the Empire State Building. You've been inside, taken the elevator, and looked up at the massive structure with your own eyes. That's your direct experience. Now, think about someone who hasn't been to New York. Maybe they've only heard about the Empire State Building from someone else. They believe it's real because someone told them. But they don't have direct experience. They're relying on faith. This is the difference between belief, faith, and direct experience. Belief and faith are like second-hand knowledge. They depend on trusting what someone else has said or what you've decided to think. Direct experience, though? That's first-hand. It's something you've personally seen, felt, or known. And when it comes to spirituality, this is what truly matters. So, what does this mean about God? Or spiritual truths? It means you can have a direct experience of them. Yes, absolutely. And if I were you, I wouldn't settle for anything less. Why? Because once you've had even a moment of deep spiritual experience, your entire life will change. It's like flipping a switch. You won't need to rely on faith or belief anymore because you'll know. That's what the spiritual journey is about. Not just thinking or believing, but actually experiencing something higher than yourself. Let's take a simple example to understand this idea. Do you believe the floor you're standing on is solid? Do you believe the walls and columns around you are real? If you say yes, you're partially wrong. Why? For a long time, scientists have been asking, what are things really made of? At first glance, it's easy to say, well, it's just a floor, or God made it appear, and leave it at that. But scientists don't stop there. They look closer, using tools like microscopes, and they see something our eyes can't. Everything is made up of tiny particles. Here's an example. Think about your flat-screen TV. When you're watching a movie, it looks like a clear, complete picture. But if you get up really close, nose to the screen close, you'll see that the image is just a bunch of tiny dots or pixels in different colors. It's not what your eyes thought it was. Scientists did something similar with the world around us. When they looked closely, they discovered that everything is made of molecules, and those molecules are made of even smaller things called atoms. And atoms? They're like the pixels of reality. There aren't that many types of atoms, maybe a little over 100 in total, but there are trillions of them in everything you see. These atoms are like Lego blocks, building the entire world we experience. This means our eyes are kind of lying to us, or at least not telling the whole truth. What we see is just the surface, but the reality underneath is very different. It's like looking at the periodic table, those little squares with chemical symbols, and realizing that everything you know comes from those basic building blocks. So, what does this have to do with spirituality? Just like science looks beyond appearances to find the truth, spirituality invites us to go beyond belief, and faith to have direct experience. It's about seeing for yourself what's real, beyond what your eyes or mind tell you. Whether it's understanding atoms in science or connecting to something higher in spirituality, it's about going deeper than the surface. Direct experience is where the truth lies. We all grew up learning that everything we see around us is made of tiny particles called atoms. At one point, scientists thought atoms were the smallest thing in existence, the ultimate building blocks of everything. But as science advanced, people started asking, what are atoms made of? That's when things got interesting. Scientists discovered that atoms can be broken down into even smaller parts. Protons, neutrons, and electrons. Maybe you remember this from school. The protons and neutrons are clustered together in the center of the atom, forming what's called the nucleus. The electrons orbit around the nucleus, sort of like planets around the sun. Sounds simple enough, right? But here's where it gets wild. Every proton is exactly the same as every other proton. The same goes for neutrons and electrons. They're identical, no matter where they are. That means everything you see, from the stars in the sky to the chair you're sitting on, is made of just three things: protons, neutrons, and electrons. And they're all the same. The entire universe, all the variety and complexity, comes from just these three building blocks. Now here's the thing. What we think of as solid, everyday things, like our bodies, the walls around us, or even the air we breathe, aren't solid in the way we imagine. Your body is made up of trillions of cells. Those cells are made of molecules. Molecules are made of atoms. And atoms are made of protons, neutrons, and electrons. But if you zoom all the way in, what you'll find isn't a solid body. It's particles held together by forces like electromagnetism. What we call solid is really just energy interacting in a very precise way. But wait, it doesn't stop there. Scientists kept digging. They found that protons and neutrons could be split into even smaller particles. Using massive machines like particle accelerators, gigantic underground tunnels stretching miles long, they started smashing protons together at incredibly high speeds. For just a fraction of a second, they detected something even smaller. Particles with funny names like quarks, leptons, and bosons. Quarks come in 6 flavors, with quirky names like up, down, charm, strange, top, and bottom. These names don't really mean anything. They're just labels. But here's how it works. If you take 2 up quarks and 1 down quark, you get a proton. If you take 2 down quarks and 1 up quark, you get a neutron. Electrons, on the other hand, can't be broken down further. They're fundamental particles. So now we know that the solid world we interact with every day is made up of tiny identical building blocks. And those building blocks are held together by forces we can't see but know are there. What does all this have to do with spirituality? Just like science reveals that the physical world isn't what it seems on the surface, spirituality teaches us that the deeper truths of life go beyond what we perceive. What we experience as reality, our bodies, our emotions, our thoughts, is like the outer shell. But beneath it all, there's something more fundamental, something deeper. The spiritual path is about breaking through the surface of what we think we know. Just like scientists went beyond atoms to discover quarks, and experiencing the truth directly. It's not about what you believe or what you've been told. It's about diving deep into your own experience to uncover the essence of what life really is. Scientists have come up with something called the Standard Model. If you look it up, you'll find a chart or diagram with little boxes representing different fundamental particles, like quarks, leptons, and bosons. These are the particles that science says make up everything in the universe, and there aren't that many of them. For a long time, scientists thought, this is it. We've gone as deep as we can. These particles are the building blocks of everything. But why are we even talking about this? Because what we see in our everyday lives, our bodies, the objects around us, the sky, isn't the full reality. Scientists from all over the world, no matter their background or country, agree on this. They've studied it, tested it, done the math, and found the same answers. The truth is, what we think is solid or real is actually something much deeper. Now here's where things get even more fascinating. Some scientists started asking, what are quarks, leptons, and bosons really made of? What's at the bottom of that? And what they discovered blew everyone's minds. There are no particles at all, not even the tiniest ones. Instead of particles, the universe is made up of fields. Think of fields as invisible forces that exist everywhere in the universe, like an ocean that stretches infinitely. These fields are what create stars, galaxies, black holes, everything. But how does that work? Imagine the ocean. When the water is calm, it's just a flat surface. But when the wind blows, the water starts to move, creating waves. These waves are not separate from the ocean. They're just the ocean in motion. Similarly, the fields in the universe aren't made of things. They're just fields. And when these fields interact and get agitated, they create waves. These waves are what we think of as particles. They carry certain traits, like electromagnetism or mass, depending on how the waves behave. But here's the thing, there's nothing solid about them. There are no actual things down there, just waves moving through fields. When you zoom out and average all those waves together, it looks like there's something solid, like the atoms and particles we learned about in school. But that's just an illusion. At its core, everything is just energy in motion, like ripples in an infinite ocean. Now, here's the part that connects to ancient wisdom. Thousands of years ago, long before scientists had particle accelerators or advanced math, ancient yogis and spiritual teachers were saying something eerily similar. They said everything in the universe is made of light. Even the Bible says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. God said, 'Let there be light.' And from light, all things were created." How did they know this? These ancient teachings describe reality in ways that align surprisingly well with what modern science is discovering. The yogis didn't have labs or experiments. They explored these truths through deep spiritual practice and meditation. They didn't call it fields or waves, but their understanding wasn't far off. So, what's the big takeaway here? The deeper we go, whether through science or spirituality, the more we realize that what we see with our eyes isn't the full story. Beneath it all, the universe is not made of solid objects, but of energy, waves, and light. And this truth has been known in some form for thousands of years. Scientists today, especially quantum physicists, will explain that the universe is made up of fields. These fields behave in specific ways, interact with one another, and create everything we see around us. By studying how these fields act, scientists can mathematically describe how the universe works. But if you ask a quantum physicist, "What are these fields made of?" they'll honestly tell you, "We don't know." They understand how the fields behave, but what the fields themselves are, at their deepest level, remains a mystery. Now, that's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? These brilliant scientists have peeled back layer after layer of reality, down to what seems like nothingness. The universe, as we know it, is built on, well, they don't really know what. It's like they've reached the limits of what science can currently explain. But here's where things get really interesting. If you ask a yogi, someone who has deeply explored their inner self through meditation and spiritual practice, they'll give you a completely different answer. A yogi who has reached a state of enlightenment will tell you that what lies at the core of everything isn't a thing at all. It's consciousness. Think about it. Every single experience you've ever had, whether you were awake, dreaming, in love, scared, happy, or sad, happened because you were aware of it. Without your awareness, those experiences wouldn't exist for you. Consciousness is the foundation of your existence. Let's take an example. Suppose you're feeling depressed. How do you know you're depressed? Because you experience it. Now, let's say you're in love. How do you know you're in love? Again, because you experience it. The same you that feels sadness is the same you that feels love. These emotions come and go, but the awareness that experiences them doesn't change. Here's another example. When you go to sleep and dream, you might find yourself flying, meeting people, or experiencing incredible things. When you wake up, you might say, "I had the most amazing dream." But who was it that experienced the dream? It was still you, wasn't it? The same you that's awake now talking about the dream. So whether you're awake, dreaming, happy, or sad, there's always this constant awareness, this you that experiences everything. That awareness isn't tied to the emotions, the body, or even the mind. It's deeper than all of that. Now connect this back to what the scientists are saying about the universe. They say the fields that create everything aren't made of anything solid. It's all energy, waves, and behaviors. But if you dig deeper, what's underneath even those waves? The yogis would say it's the same thing that's at the core of you, pure consciousness. This consciousness is the part of you that experiences life. It's the same awareness that observes your thoughts, feels your emotions, and knows you're alive. And just like scientists can't find anything solid at the root of the universe, yogis understand that at the deepest level, you aren't a body, a mind, or even a collection of emotions. You're the consciousness that experiences all of it. Have you ever felt your heart hurt? Like when you're sad or heartbroken? Or maybe it felt open and warm, like when you're filled with love and joy. Sometimes it might feel closed off, like you're shutting down. These are all feelings you've experienced, right? But have you ever stopped to think about who is experiencing those feelings? Who is noticing that your heart feels heavy or light, open or closed? It's you, the one who's always aware of what's happening. This awareness, or consciousness, is the core of who you are. It's the part of you that's always present, no matter what you're experiencing. When you're dreaming, there's something inside you that knows you're in the dream. When you're awake, it's the same awareness that's watching everything unfold in your life. And here's something amazing. This consciousness, the awareness at the core of your being, is also at the core of everything in the universe. Remember all that quantum stuff scientists talk about? The waves, the fields, the quarks, the leptons. It all comes back to consciousness. How do we know this? Well, this is where things get interesting. While scientists rely on experiments and theories, great spiritual masters, people who've deeply explored their inner selves, don't need to guess. They don't just believe it, they've experienced it. Some people call this state enlightenment, but the word gets thrown around a lot. People say things like, "Oh, I had this amazing enlightening experience." That's nice, but that's not the same as truly being enlightened. True enlightenment, or what some call self-realization, is when you fully understand who you really are. It's when you realize that you're not just your body, your thoughts, or your feelings. You're the consciousness that experiences all of those things. So, where does this consciousness come from? What's its source? That's the big question. You, as the center of consciousness, are constantly looking out at the world, experiencing it through your senses, your eyes, ears, and so on. But you're not seeing the universe as it truly is. You're not seeing quantum fields or tiny particles. You're seeing the world filtered through your mind and senses. Even your thoughts, emotions, and ideas are part of what you experience. But have you ever stopped to ask, who is aware of my thoughts? Who is watching my emotions? That's where it gets deep. You are the one who is aware of all these things. But what is that awareness? Scientists have their theories. They say consciousness is something your brain creates, like a result of neurons firing in complex ways. But they're wrong. How do we know? Because yogis, those who've spent their lives meditating and going inward, have gone beyond the mind. When you meditate, you step back from the constant noise of your thoughts, emotions, and even the outside world. Over time, as you go deeper, you stop identifying with these things. You realize you're not the thoughts. You're the one watching the thoughts. You're not the emotions. You're the one feeling the emotions. And if you go even deeper, you can reach a point where you're no longer just watching the mind and body. Instead, you fall back into the very source of consciousness itself. It's like a drop of water returning to the ocean. That drop, your individual awareness, merges with the infinite source from which it came. This is what the great spiritual masters have discovered. At the deepest level, you and the universe are made of the same thing, pure consciousness. And when you realize this, everything changes. You stop being limited by the small self, your body, your thoughts, your emotions, and you recognize that you're connected to something vast, timeless, and infinite. That's the ultimate truth of who you are. Imagine a single ray of sunlight streaming through your window. If you followed that ray of light all the way back to its source, where would it take you? To the sun, the great ball of fire that gives life to all the rays. In the same way, spiritual masters throughout history have followed their awareness, their consciousness, back to its source. Where did they end up? In the infinite ocean of consciousness, the oneness that everything comes from. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "My Father and I are one." He wasn't talking about something outside of himself. He was pointing to the truth that the essence of who we are, our consciousness, is connected to the divine source. And when he said, "You must die to be reborn," he wasn't talking about physical death. He was talking about letting go of the small individual sense of self, the me, that sees itself as separate, and returning to the source where there is no separation. The great spiritual masters did this. They let go of their limited individual identities and experienced themselves as one with the entire universe. They didn't just see the stars, they became the stars. They didn't just live in the universe. They realized they were the universe. For example, in his book Autobiography of a Yogi, Yogananda describes his first experience of what he called cosmic consciousness. In that moment, he didn't feel limited to his physical body. Instead, he experienced himself expanding at the speed of light in every direction. He felt as though all the stars, galaxies, and everything in creation were inside of him. He realized that there was no boundary between himself and the universe. He was one with it all. Let me share another story, a more recent one. There was an astronaut named Edgar Mitchell. He wasn't just any astronaut. He was a highly educated, brilliant engineer who graduated from places like MIT and Caltech. After walking on the moon, he was on his way back to Earth, alone in one of the spacecraft's modules. As he looked out into the vastness of space, surrounded by the stars and the infinite universe, something extraordinary happened. He stopped feeling like a person looking at the stars. Instead, he felt like he became the stars. He said he merged with the universe in a way he had never experienced before. In that moment, his consciousness wasn't separate from what he was seeing. He was the universe. When he returned to Earth, this experience changed him forever. He founded the Institute of Noetic Sciences, an organization dedicated to studying consciousness and its connection to the physical world. He wanted to understand how our awareness relates to everything around us, because he had experienced that connection firsthand. Throughout history, other people have had similar experiences. Poets like Walt Whitman, through their deep reflections and writings, seem to have touched this divine state of oneness. It's not just for a few chosen people. This understanding is available to anyone who is willing to let go of the illusion of separation and return to the source of their being. So what does this mean for us? At the deepest level, the universe is made of consciousness. It's not just waves, particles, or fields. those things come out of consciousness. The great spiritual masters have seen this, not through scientific experiments, but through deep inner exploration. This is why scientists often struggle to fully understand consciousness. They try to study it by looking at the brain or analyzing the mind. But that's like trying to understand yourself by staring at your reflection in the mirror. You're only seeing the surface. To truly know consciousness, you have to look inward, not outward. When you turn your awareness inward, when you meditate deeply enough, you can trace your consciousness back to its source, just like following a ray of sunlight back to the sun. And when you do, you realize that the essence of who you are is the same essence that creates and sustains the entire universe. You are not separate from it. You are part of the infinite oneness. Your thoughts and your mind are tools, but they're not you. If you try to study your thoughts to figure out who you really are, you'll keep going in circles. That's why meditation is so important. It helps you look inward. It's not about analyzing what you're thinking. It's about going deeper, beyond thought, to discover the truth about your very being. This is why some people say, and I agree, that yoga is the most profound science humanity has ever found. Not the yoga of just poses and stretches, but the yoga that dives into the core of consciousness. If you study something like Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it's all about teaching you how to go back to that source of consciousness and showing you what it's like to experience it. In the Western world, we've made incredible progress studying the mind and the physical universe. We've figured out what atoms are made of, what the quantum field is, and so on. But when it comes to understanding consciousness itself, we've been looking in the wrong direction. It's like trying to find love or God in the wrong places. When you meditate or practice techniques to quiet your mind and let go of your small self, your ego, you begin to feel something. That something is energy. You've probably felt it in your life before. Think about it. When you're excited or in love, you feel a rush of energy, but when you're heartbroken or upset, you feel drained. This isn't about what you eat or how much you sleep. It's something deeper. When you fall in love, you might feel so energized that you can't sleep or eat. Or when someone in therapy has a major breakthrough, they suddenly feel alive, filled with energy, as though they've been set free. What's happening? It's all about being open or closed. When you're open, you let this energy flow through you. When you're closed, the energy is blocked. But what energy are we talking about? This energy isn't just any energy. It's the same energy that created the quantum field. The same energy the great spiritual masters feel when they experience oneness with the universe. It's the energy of love, enthusiasm, and joy. And when it's blocked, you feel the opposite: depression, fear, or apathy. Here's the thing. As human beings, we're capable of directly experiencing the energy of creation, the energy of God. Not in some distant, abstract way, but here and now, inside ourselves. This God isn't some figure in the sky. It's the omnipresent, all-powerful source that created everything, including you and me. Yogis have long said that everything comes down to vibrations. The original vibration, they say, is the sound Om. This is what's meant in the Bible when it says, "In the beginning was the Word." That word wasn't a spoken word like we know it. It was the original vibration that brought everything into being. Christians echo this when they say Amen. It's a recognition of that divine vibration, the energy that flows through all creation. So through meditation, you're not just sitting there doing nothing. You're tuning in to that vibration, that energy, and reconnecting with the source of everything. It's not about escaping life. It's about opening yourself up to the infinite energy that's always been there, waiting for you to notice. Here's the point. This vast, infinite field of consciousness, sometimes called Brahma, vibrated. What's incredible is that years ago, we couldn't even imagine that this vibration created the universe. Now, science is starting to catch up and understand how it all came to be. They don't realize they're talking about God, but yogis have known this truth for ages. They know that just one vibration from this field was enough to create everything we see. Who else can figure this out? Scientists. They observe how these vibrations produce forces like magnetism and other interactions. But there are still gaps in their knowledge, like gravity. They have a theory about a particle called a graviton, but they haven't found it yet. Scientists also study tiny particles called quarks and leptons, and how fundamental forces shape the universe. There are only 4 fundamental forces that govern everything: electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, and gravity. A few years back, scientists made a major discovery: the Higgs boson. This particle helps give mass to things that otherwise wouldn't seem to exist. It was a groundbreaking moment in science, showing how everything comes from nothing. Now, here's where it gets exciting. Consciousness also vibrates. Look at how close science is to spirituality. There's just a thin veil separating the two. But while science builds machines to study these forces, they can't reach consciousness itself. Why? Because consciousness isn't something you can measure or find in a lab. It's already within you. You don't need machines or equations to find it. You are consciousness. The essence of your being is the same as the source of all creation. Christians even touch on this idea when they say, the soul is of God. It's just a matter of language. The truth is, you are the vibration. You are the energy that makes up everything. This is why it's so powerful to meditate on yourself, to honor the divine within you. God dwells within you as you. This understanding bridges science and spirituality. Science tells us everything is energy. Einstein said it himself with E equals mc squared. That equation doesn't just explain atomic bombs. It shows that all mass is energy, and all energy can become mass. The entire universe is made of energy. Scientists are seeing this truth at the quantum level. And if you look closely, spirituality has been saying the same thing all along. The two are not as separate as they seem. Now, the real question is, how do you experience this for yourself? The answer is within you. When you realize everything, your thoughts, your emotions, your very being, is energy, you start to see the connection. Energy comes together to create form, thoughts, and emotions, and you're a part of it. So, take a moment to understand this. Science and spirituality are closer than ever. And the path to this understanding starts with you, honoring the consciousness and energy within. When you're depressed, what's really going on? It's a lack of energy. Think about the words people use. I'm drained, or I have no energy. We say these things without realizing how deeply true they are. This isn't just emotional. It's tied to the very energy that makes up everything. It's the same energy Einstein talked about in E equals mc squared. The same energy scientists study in the quantum field. All energy is connected. Sometimes you feel it and sometimes you don't. When do you feel it? When you're open. We haven't fully defined what being open means, but you know the feeling. When you're excited, inspired, or in love, you're full of energy. You're glowing. On the flip side, when you're depressed, it's like the energy is blocked. You feel heavy, dark, and closed off. Even if you don't believe in things like auras, you can sense it in someone's presence. A depressed person feels dark. A happy person, like a glowing bride, is radiant. So, what's the difference? It's whether you're letting energy flow in or blocking it out. Energy is always there. It's the same for all of us, and it's unlimited. The key is learning how to let it flow through you. How do most people try to stay open? In the Western world, the idea is to get what you want. The belief is that when you get what you want, you'll feel good, excited, and full of energy. So, people are taught to go after their desires, make money, gain power, look attractive, become famous, or achieve something impressive. The message is, get what you want and you'll feel amazing. But here's the truth. This approach doesn't really work. Sure, it feels great when you get what you want. For a while. But have you ever gotten something you wanted and still felt like something was missing? Or maybe you wanted something badly, got it, and then got tired of it. That's called the law of diminishing returns. The more you get, the less it satisfies you over time. So, if getting what you want isn't the answer, what is? It's about understanding why you feel energy when you get something you desire. It's not the thing itself that gives you energy. Think about it. What excites you might not excite someone else. What thrilled you yesterday might annoy you today. For example, you might be deeply in love with someone, but if you discover something shocking about them, like they've done something horrible in the past, your feelings can change instantly. The same energy that made you feel light and happy can suddenly make you feel dark and closed off. It doesn't take much. One wrong word, one unmet expectation, and you shut down. This is where spirituality comes in. It's about learning what's happening inside you when these shifts occur. As Yogananda said, entering meditation is like stepping into a laboratory for studying the soul. To grow spiritually, you need to start paying attention to yourself. Notice when you feel open and energized. Notice when you close off and feel dark. It's not about chasing external things. It's about learning to keep yourself open to the flow of energy that's already there. That's the real work. Start looking inward and paying attention. That's where the answers are. Here's the bottom line. You have two choices in life. One option is to go out and try to get everything you want and avoid everything you don't want. The other is to ask yourself a deeper question. Why am I like this? Why do I open up and feel happy when things go my way, but close off and feel miserable when they don't? And most importantly, can I do something about it? Let me tell you a secret. Sometimes you'll get what you want and it'll feel great. Other times you won't get it and you'll feel frustrated or disappointed. Maybe even worse. And then there are times when something happens that you really didn't want, and it can mess you up for years. Just ask a psychologist. They have terms for these things, like PTSD. Some experiences are so traumatic, they can affect a person's entire life. Now here's the reality. It's your life, it's your energy, your heart, your mind, and nobody else's. If you believe that you need something outside of yourself to feel good or be open, you're setting yourself up for a tough ride. You'll worry, feel anxious, and constantly fear losing the things that make you happy. But one day, maybe today, you'll wake up and realize this. It takes two parts to feel happy. One part is wanting something. The other part is getting it. So why not focus on the part you control? Why not work on yourself, the one who decides what to want in the first place? Of course, you like it when someone says they love you. Of course you like making money, being admired, or feeling attractive. Who wouldn't? But all those things come with an expiration date. Beauty fades, fame can be fleeting, and no amount of money guarantees happiness forever. At some point you realize, I'm the one who decides what I like. I'm the one who decides what makes me happy. And that's the part you can change. This is the essence of spirituality. The poet Rumi put it beautifully. Yesterday I was clever, so I was trying to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. Why? Because when you change yourself, everything changes. What if you simply decided to like more things? Think about it. If you only like 3 very specific foods, and they have to be made perfectly with the right spices and cooked by the right chef, how often will you actually enjoy a meal? Not very often. But what if you decided to try a 4th dish? What if you didn't need it to be made perfectly? Who's better off? The picky person or the open person? It's obvious. The person who learns to enjoy more things experiences more joy, more often. And then you start to wonder, what if I liked even more things? What if I tried new things and enjoyed the excitement of not knowing how it'll turn out? Suddenly, your life opens up. Now think about your relationships. How often do you expect your loved ones to be exactly the way you want them to be? I picked you out of billions of people. Now behave exactly how I want. Say what I want, do what I like, and never mess up. It's exhausting for them and for you. But here's the truth. The problem isn't them. The problem is you. You've limited your openness, your willingness to feel joy and inspiration, to a tiny list of conditions. So why not change that? Why not expand the buffet of things you're willing to enjoy? That's what true spirituality is about. It's not about giving up everything or renouncing life. It's about freeing yourself. When you work on yourself, when you learn to stay open no matter what, you discover a kind of happiness that doesn't depend on things going your way. And that, my friend, changes everything. The problem comes from thinking that the only way to be happy is by getting what you want. You believe that happiness depends on achieving your desires. So you focus all your energy, thoughts, and effort on that. But guess what? That's not the right way to go about it. It doesn't lead to the happiness you're chasing. And deep down, you already know that. So, does this mean you should just give up on wanting things? Of course not. That wouldn't make any sense. If you give up on everything you enjoy or care about, you're left with nothing. And that's not the answer either. Saying, I like these 3 things, but now I can't have them, is a miserable way to live. Instead, here's the key. Focus on increasing the things that bring you joy. Find more things that excite you, inspire you, and make you happy. When you do this, your life fills with excitement, passion, and meaning. The problem is, no one teaches us this. Schools don't talk about it, whether it's elementary school, college, or advanced studies. They tell you, find your passion and chase it. But that's not quite right. The real lesson is to be passionate about life itself, about everything you encounter. When you're passionate about life, you'll feel that energy no matter what happens. If your passion is tied only to getting what you want, you're setting yourself up for frustration. Why? Because even when you get what you want, it's not enough. You have to keep it, make it last, and then deal with how both you and your desires will change over time. It's exhausting, and it's why so many relationships fall apart. People get married because they're passionate about each other, but over time, life happens. People change and challenges come up. Instead of staying open, they close off emotionally, and that's when things break down. What's the solution? It's learning to stay open, no matter what. That's what true spirituality is about. It's the practice of staying open and never closing your heart or mind to life's experiences. When you live like this, your passion and joy aren't limited to fleeting moments. They become a constant part of who you are. People often ask, how do I stay open? And the answer is simple. Don't close. But when I say that, they sometimes respond, that's such a silly answer. Still, it's the right answer. Why? Because most of us don't actually know how to open ourselves. If I told you to open your heart right now, you might not even know where to start. But you do know when you're closing off, right? You feel it. The trick is to notice that moment and just not close. Think about it like this. If a door is open and you don't close it, it stays open. Eventually, you can take the door off the hinges altogether so it can't close, no matter what. That's the goal, to stay open in all situations, no matter how tough they are. This idea isn't new. Even Christ taught it. He said things like, turn the other cheek. Why? Because he was teaching us not to close off, even when others mistreat us. He sent his disciples out, warning them they'd be insulted, hated, or even killed. But the message was the same. Don't close. Even as he hung on the cross, he stayed open. He forgave those who hurt him, saying, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. There's a powerful lesson in the story of Christ praying in the garden before his crucifixion. He knew what was coming: pain, humiliation, suffering. He even asked, do I really have to go through this? But then he surrendered, saying, not my will, but yours. What does that mean? It means he chose to stay open, even through unimaginable hardship. That's the path he taught. But let's bring it back to everyday life. Practicing openness isn't just about handling big challenges. It's about the small things too. When the weather is too hot, or someone cuts you off in traffic, do you stay calm and open? Or do you get upset? If a meal isn't the size you expected, or you spill something on your clothes, do you shrug it off, or do you let it ruin your day? These little annoyances are examples of how we close all the time without even realizing it. And closing doesn't just make you upset in the moment. It drains your energy over time. It makes you tired, anxious, or even depressed. And here's the thing. Sometimes you close, not because of what's happening right now, but because of something that happened years ago. Maybe something upset you when you were a child, and you've been carrying it with you ever since. In spirituality, these old patterns are called samskaras. They're like emotional scars, things you couldn't deal with at the time, so you buried them inside. Psychologists like Freud call this suppression. Either way, these stored feelings don't go away. They stay inside, and every time they resurface, you push them back down instead of letting them go. This is the real spiritual work, to stop closing and to let go of the things you've been holding on to. It's not easy, but it's how you free yourself from the weight of the past and stay open to life. So when I say don't close, I'm not giving you a quick fix. I'm reminding you that there's work to do. And it starts with noticing every little moment where you feel yourself shutting down and making a choice to stay open instead. You know what I mean. You're inside your own mind, experiencing things you couldn't deal with before. But instead of facing them, you push them back down. That takes energy. You have an endless supply of energy, but think about how you're using it. Are you using it to keep suppressing what you don't like? Are you spending it trying to control people, situations, and everything around you so that you can feel better? Why are you doing all that? Because deep down, you don't feel good. You've stored a lot of stuff from the past. Now, you spend your time thinking about what needs to happen to feel okay, or how to avoid things that make you feel bad. Every thought you have uses energy. So, where is all your energy going? You're wasting a lot of it constantly. When you decide to work on yourself, what does that actually mean? It means learning not to shut yourself off from experiences. Seriously, if you take away one thing from this, let it be this. Don't close yourself off. Closing off is awful. It doesn't feel good, does it? And the truth is, you're the one who's doing it. Nobody else is shutting you down. It's all you. So, you need to get to a point where you stop closing yourself off. How do you do that? Start practicing. People always ask me why I don't teach about big, tough problems like death or heartbreak. Instead, I talk about small things like traffic or the weather. Here's why. If you can't handle small things, you won't handle big things. It's like learning to play the piano. If you can't play simple scales, you're not ready for Beethoven. The same goes for life. You need to practice staying open, just like you'd practice a sport or an instrument. You're not going to be good at it right away. And let me tell you, you're probably not good at it now. But that's okay. You just have to start practicing. Begin with the little stuff. Don't try to handle massive challenges like losing a loved one or going through a breakup right away. That's like trying to play Tchaikovsky without ever touching a keyboard. If something really tough happens, do your best to get through it. Then, go back and practice with smaller things. If you can't handle small frustrations, how will you manage big ones? Most people don't practice because they think little things don't matter. But they do. Whether it's the heat, the cold, what someone says, or how someone's dressed. These little things are your training ground. What are you practicing? Not closing yourself off. Let's say you don't like what someone said. Okay. But staying upset won't make you happy. Practice being okay, even if you don't like what was said. It's not about denying your feelings. It's about not getting stuck in them. This is the real work, learning to stay open no matter what's happening. It's not easy, but the more you practice, the better you'll get. Letting go is something you practice. It's what I teach. It's not always easy or comfortable, and that's okay. Imagine rushing through town, hitting every red light. By the time you get where you're going, you're a mess, right? But what if you saw those red lights differently? What if they were your teacher, like a tennis coach, tossing balls your way? Each light gives you a chance to practice letting go. Instead of fighting it, you could say, "It doesn't feel good, but I'm okay with that." Take a breath, use a mantra, or say something positive like, "Thank goodness for red lights. They keep us safe." Make it playful. Let go of the tension and make staying open fun. When you stop resisting the small stuff, you save your energy. Resisting takes energy. Did you know that? Non-resistance is a spiritual practice, and as you embrace it, amazing things happen. People from all over share stories with me. They feel more energy. Why? Because they're not wasting it by closing themselves off. When you stay open, energy flows freely. Yoga calls this energy Shakti. You've felt it before, like when someone says something kind, or when you feel love. That warm, uplifting feeling, that's Shakti. As you keep practicing, you'll notice more moments like this. A bird chirping in the morning might make your heart open in a way it didn't before. And as you stay open, the energy grows stronger. You don't need to study chakras to feel it. You'll notice it naturally, flowing from your heart, your forehead, even the top of your head. This energy was always inside you, but you were too busy resisting, arguing, or complaining to notice. When you stop doing those things, the energy starts to flow on its own. It's your natural state. Over time, as you keep letting go, it doesn't fade, it stays. You realize that complaining or closing off only blocks that energy. So ask yourself, is holding on to anger or hurt worth losing that beautiful flow of energy? If someone lies to you, cheats you, or hurts you, are you willing to give up your peace and that Shakti flow because of what they did? It's your choice. Let go and let the energy keep flowing. This is what Christ taught. That's what turn the other cheek really means. It doesn't mean you ignore problems or avoid dealing with them. It means you choose not to give up love and peace just because someone said something hurtful, did something wrong, or took something from you. Are you willing to lose that beautiful flow of energy because of someone else's mistakes or ignorance? When you start complaining or holding on to negativity, you'll notice that the energy, the flow, reduces. But when you let go, it comes back. That's the beauty of it. In that moment, letting go becomes your lesson. That energy, often called Shakti, becomes your teacher. How? By showing you that holding on to negativity blocks it. When you stop clinging to the garbage, you allow the Shakti to flow freely, and you realize how beautiful it truly is. You might think, I want to feel even better. I want to go higher. And you will, because the more you let go, the higher you rise. It's a simple truth. The more you release, the more energy flows, lifting you to greater heights. This is what the great spiritual teachers understood. As you let go, you experience what they taught. An increasing flow of Shakti, of life, of divine energy. Christ explained this too. He said, "Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Father." What does that mean? It means your energy and life don't just come from physical things like food, success, or possessions. True life flows from spirit, from God's word, from something much deeper and more profound inside you. In the Bible, it says, "In the beginning was the Word." That word is spirit, and it's the flow of energy moving through you. As you let go, you start to feel this energy more clearly. Over time, you might even recognize it as God's energy flowing within you. Sometimes, just one powerful spiritual moment, lasting even 10 seconds, can completely change your life because it's so much higher and more beautiful than anything you've ever felt before. But imagine if that flow didn't just last 10 seconds. Imagine it became part of your everyday life, always there, always flowing, lifting you higher and higher. That's what happens as you keep letting go. Eventually, this energy gets so strong that it flows through different parts of your being, lighting you up in ways you never thought possible. That's where the spiritual masters went. They reached these incredible states of energy and peace. Yogananda had an incredible ability. You can even find videos about it. Just search for something like Yogananda in sleep on YouTube. These old clips show him wearing a turban, lying down on a small bed, rolling his eyes upward, and then, bam, he's gone. Instantly, he enters a deep meditative state called samadhi, where he completely merges with the divine. When he's ready, he comes back, just like that. He wasn't showing off in these videos. He wanted people to see what's possible. That's the power of the great masters. They've learned to let go of their individual selves completely and experience this ultimate state of unity. The beautiful thing is, you don't have to wait for that level. Along the way, you'll feel a wonderful, sustaining energy flowing through you. The more you notice it and commit to staying open to it, by avoiding anything that blocks it, the stronger it becomes. Why avoid closing yourself off? Not because you're trying to earn heaven, but because this energy is heaven. It's what Christ taught when he said, "The kingdom is within you." He wasn't talking about a faraway place, but the divine energy inside of you, here and now. Christ's teachings were about true spirituality. He was showing us that we are great beings, connected to God at our very core. When you let go of your ego, your likes, dislikes, and attachments, you make room for something much greater. You're trading those little wants and worries for waves of pure love and joy. Imagine choosing between a fleeting pleasure, like ice cream, and overwhelming ecstasy that fills your entire being. It's not even a competition. But this doesn't mean you stop living your life. You can still have relationships, be creative, or pursue goals. The difference is you're not doing these things to get something. You're doing them because love naturally wants to give. Creativity naturally wants to create. And inspiration naturally wants to inspire. You're no longer driven by need or desire because you already have everything you need within you. You're overflowing with love and light, and you share it freely without expecting anything in return. When you're in this state, it's like saying, "Here's some love, here's some kindness, here's some help. Take it if you want. I don't need anything back because I'm already full." That's true freedom. There's nothing external that can add to the joy already inside of you. This is why we honor the great masters, people like Yogananda or Meher Baba. They reached the higher states of being. Meher Baba, often considered an avatar, lived in constant ecstasy. When asked, "Who are you?" he answered, "I was in the beginning, before anything was created. I will be in the end, after everything fades away. There was never a time I was not. And there will never be a time I am not." That's not just who he was. It's who you are too. It's what Christ meant when he said, "The Father and I are one." Now, if we connect this to modern science, quantum physics, in many ways, aligns with these spiritual teachings. Scientists talk about the quantum field, which NASA once described as omnipresent, everywhere at all times. That's exactly how we describe God. The quantum field is like a canvas, and all it needs is vibration to turn pure consciousness into creation. So, whether you're looking at ancient spiritual teachings or cutting-edge science, it all points to the same truth. There's a divine energy within you, and when you stay open to it, you experience the universe itself. Thank you for listening.